Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic true health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 153. I'm thrilled to have back on the show the wonderful health coach, Kimberly Lackey, who is empathcoaching.com. And I love the principle of your coaching, your health coaching business, because to have empathy for someone is to get into their shoes and to really understand the path they're on and help them and guide them. And isn't it wonderful to have someone that you could hire, someone in your life that would be your advocate, that would be someone who could really understand what you're going through and help you to move and navigate through those roadblocks in your life and in your health, and help you to get to the other side. And so that's why, one of the reasons why I love health coaches. And last time you were on, Kimberly, we had a fantastic conversation. You shared about your history, your amazing story of recovery from cancer and from illness, and now having come back on the other side, you are able to really understand where people are, no matter where they are in their health journey, and you can help them to navigate the waters. So I'm really excited to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to catching up with you.
Yeah,
Telling
absolutely.
you what I've been up to.
Yeah, because last time we spoke, you were moving from, what was it, Hawaii, all the way to someplace just north of San Francisco?
That's correct. Yes, I was living in Maui, and life brought me to Northern California. So it has been a very interesting 6 months for me.
I imagine. I mean, it's Hawaii is kind of a little sleeper state, like just kind of a cozy roll up the how do they say, roll up the sidewalks at 6 p.m. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of nightlife in parts of Hawaii, but when I've been to Hawaii, it was all about just like, all right, after dinner we're just going to chill and watch the sunset. And so you've gone from this really very peaceful place to a very busy environment, right?
Yeah.
So San Francisco being a totally different world, a totally different culture. And now you have, because of your past, and I'd love for you to, just for those who didn't hear your first interview, I definitely recommend going back and listening to it, about 6 months ago, right? And you have gone from some incredible illness to be able to run marathons. And you weren't you also training for, was it a triathlon or a marathon that you were going to be doing?
Okay, right after having cancer and a really debilitating arthritic condition, I've never done a full marathon, but I have completed a half. In the last we spoke, I had just completed a triathlon, which the triathlon had always been on my bucket list, and I started running because that was the hardest of the three of the swim, bike, run. Running was the hardest thing for me, so I trained to run half marathon so I could then get in and do a triathlon. So yes, I finished that right after you and I had just spoke, and currently right now I'm at the beginning stages of training for the Giants race here in San Francisco. So
What's the Giants race?
it it's the San Francisco Giants. You start at AT&T Park and finish at AT&T Park where the Giants play, and I'm actually the honored hero for the team. for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. I'm the honored hero for this team. So I got to do the national kickoff call. I got to talk and share my story. And it just is so rewarding to be basically sitting in San Francisco doing a national call, people all over the country that are listening in and are going to come here to San Francisco and run that race. And I get to run with them and cross the finish line with them. And I say with them in quotes because I am not a fast runner, but eventually, eventually I'll cross, eventually I'll cross the finish line with the people that, heard me. So that was that those are always such personally rewarding moments for me.
You sound so much happier than you
Yeah.
did. I mean, not that you were like depressed or anything, but there's definitely I mean, it sounds like there's a bounce in your step.
Hey, I
You
love
sound.
those reflections.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool to have followed you. I'd love to have you on the show like every 6 months. It's kind of fun to hear what you're up to. So how was the move? So you moved to San Francisco and you're building your coaching practice. How have you been successfully building your coaching practice? You have a lot of great testimonials on your website. I see there's some new stuff on your website. For listeners, if they're wondering like what's this interview about? What I love about Kimberly is her coaching style, and health coaching is not just about what you're going to put in your mouth, right? It's not just about kale and broccoli.
Yep,
A
that's
lot
right.
of it has to do with helping people to overcome what's stopping them, right? And you, of all people, overcame so much, and you're not letting anything stop you from, training for that triathlon or running that half marathon or marathon. And that's so inspiring. And I think we need more of that. We need more inspiration in our life. So take us back and tell us, what was your move like? And did you learn any life lessons, during that move?
Oh goodness, I'm always learning. I'm a teacher and a student, I think, every day. But so when I was on in January, kind of a focus that we talked about was fear, and in the new year, how to just really stare fear in the face and do it anyway, and it being fill in the blank for whatever that fear looks like for you. And I had been personally facing some fear because I was moving from Maui, where, as you mentioned, is a little kind of sleepy. Not sleepy, but I mean, you just have so much freedom, and the energy is 100% different than where I was moving, and kind of where I was moving at the time was very unknown, and that was very scary to me. I was leaving friends, family, and I think that I am intuitive, very much so, for myself and for others, and certainly empathic. And I think that a big fear for me was I knew that I was going somewhere more permanent, and that really scared me, that I was going to be putting down roots, but because I didn't really know what it felt like, but I sensed that it was where I was going was more permanent. And I didn't know one single person. I mean, I was going to an area that I didn't know anybody. And for those that are familiar with the Bay Area, I don't live in the city. I live in the North Bay. So I am, removed from the city. I go into the city frequently, but I'm not in that energy all the time. I am kind of up in the North Bay. It's a lot more nature. It's actually really pretty amazing countryside, and wildlife and nature, which I personally crave and need for my own peace of mind. But having said that, I just really had to face just a lot of limiting beliefs that I had, um, and in that, actually, my whole business model has changed a lot in 6 months. So yeah, we'll have to
Oh
talk.
yeah. Well, Let's hear it. How's your business model changed? And I know, we have a lot of health coaches that actually listen to the show, and we have a lot of healthcare professionals that listen to the show. So it'd be interesting to hear how you've moved to this beautiful area. You don't know anyone, and you're ready to continue to build your coaching practice. So what happened next?
Well, one thing that happened that we had kind of talked about on the other podcast was as I would be feeling scared, my friends and family and those that we kind of can refer to as our tribe, those people that we keep close to us, would tell me, Kim, you're going to be fine. You make friends quickly. People are drawn to you. You're going to be fine. And that was something that didn't feel fine to me at the time, but I just had to believe it. I believed it because I knew that those are the people that I keep close to me. They're not, they're lifting me up, and that's what I needed at the time. And 6 months later, that is very true. As I was waiting here to um, waiting for you and I to get on this Skype call, I had someone inviting me to the Warriors game, which is tonight. Hopefully they'll win the playoffs tonight. Win the championship, I guess, would be if they beat the Cavs tonight. But I mean, it's like those are things that would be on someone's bucket list, and just by accepting and being and saying yes to life, I have met some really amazing people, and again, being vulnerable and sharing. So in terms of community, I feel very connected to this community. And second, in terms of my business, I always, when I started, I wanted to work one-on-one with people, but I also have a passion for writing books. I used to teach school and help kids publish books. So I've always wanted to publish children's books. And public speaking is just something that I really love. And I think I love it for two reasons. But one is I can kind of speak and not, I can get out what's in my head and share it to others, and then feel comfortable that if it resonates with anybody in the audience, they will then come to me for more, and I can work one-on-one with them, but I can share with them who I am. And then with the writing, I just envision, I love helping children. I don't have children of my own, and I love it because I wish that I knew what I know now. I think that if I would have been able to be more emotionally supported as a child and understood my empathic nature as a child, my own health journey would have been very different. I don't regret that I don't regret my past by any means, but I certainly love to give back to children in that way. So I've just been doing more. I've just been doing more public speaking than one-on-one coaching, and a lot more writing. I write for Cure Joy, and I'm not working with people one-on-one, but it's shifted in numbers a bit.
Got it. Oh, I love the idea of supporting children and youth. I think if you look at the statistics right now, with childhood cancer on the rise, childhood obesity, diabetes, teenage suicide, and there's just a greater pressure on kids to look, skinny. And I remember back when, we were like the MTV generation, right? So we'd see all these, singers and dancers in the videos, or obviously magazines, but we didn't, growing up, we didn't have the internet, or at least it was in its infancy. And but we still had some of that pressure to look skinny and beautiful. And now, I mean, with YouTube, and there's 1 billion makeup tutorials, and you've got 13-year-old girls like being pressured to look different than who they are, and in diet. And it's really, really sad and scary. And then you've got cyberbullying, and these kids don't have when you were angry as a kid, you had some time. Like if you were angry at home, you had some time before you went back and like talked to the other kid or something. You had a little bit of time. There's a little bit of buffer. But now, if you're angry at someone, you can just blast it all over social media at any time. There's this instant communication, and so, you know, the kids these days, it's really sad to see the cyberbullying and to see what's going on. And if we could teach them to take a deep breath and to analyze the situation and to not let their monkey brain control
Mhm.
them, right? We've got that part of our brain, that initial jerk reaction that causes us to do stuff we later really regret. That's like the primal monkey brain. And if we can just take a deep breath and let our analytical critical thinking take over, then we'd make a lot of better life choices. And of course, as adults, we've learned to somewhat do that more than kids. Kids, they're the first thing they do is go to the monkey brain, right? And they want to just knee jerk from their emotions. But if there's some way that you could support a whole family, not only in achieving the health goals that they have, but also having better empathy and better patience and understanding with their emotions, that would be so powerful, especially helping set up an environment where parents, because if you're going to do health coaching for a whole family, parents and kids, then you could be helping the parents see things from the kids' perspective and help the kids see something from the parents' perspective. And I think that's really healing when people realize that those that they love are actually listening to them and getting in their shoes. And I think a lot of times that's why we act out, is we really, really just wanted the our parent or our sibling or a close one, a loved one, to get in our shoes and understand the situation from our vantage point, right? And so if you could do that for a whole family, doing health coaching for the whole family, I think that would be such a huge difference in their life.
Well, so much that you have said is really firing off my brain. One is monkey brain. I have a client of mine in Maui that um, we have to revisit the monkey brain, you know, and where that comes into play here, and what you're mentioning is, he's an adult, but age is just a number in so many ways. I mean, it's a 10-year-old can be an old soul and born into a family where, just someone doesn't understand. There's just so many different variables. Maybe their parents don't understand the fact that, there is so much information readily available. I mean, if a 10-year-old child is wanting to eat quinoa and their parents are Italian and they've grown up on pasta, and it's like just this huge disconnect, because with with this information age and with everything so accessible to us at all times, 24 hours a day, a lot of times the parents of a different generation, I mean, they're just not used to that. And so in order to catch up is very hard. So I mean, I do coach parents, and that's something that I've done for a while. That's not new. Um, it's just that it wasn't my focus when I first started, and but I always wanted it. It was always a vision of mine. And I'm not where I fully want to be. I kind of go with the flow in general, but and kind of go morph as life is taking me. But you also mentioned childhood cancer, and I do work with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society as well, and I have for years. And if I see I mean, there just is really almost nothing worse than seeing a child have cancer. I mean, everything about that is wrong, right? I mean, to our body, to see a child that sick. Um,
It's so
it's,
heartbreaking.
yes,
You just, what can we do to stop it? It's so we just feel so powerless. And you're right, everything about it feels wrong. And these kids constantly amaze me. Like,
it's just a
there's those
fair.
tearjerker
That's just gonna
videos
say
where,
that.
yeah, the kids will surprise us, and they are so strong and so courageous. It's just amazing. Now, tell us a bit about the work that you do with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. Do you help do fundraising, or how do you feel you make a difference with their organization?
Well, I'd say so. For those people that are just listening to this call, I'm a lymphoma survivor, and this March 4th, it had been 12 years that I survived.
Yay.
I call that my Carpe Diem day. Um, so I always do something fun and special for myself on March 4th to remind myself that I am here and alive and thriving. But so in 2004, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I immediately kind of reached out to Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and I did personal fundraising for them in Tampa, Florida, where I was living. I joined a walk team and did Light the Night and was fundraiser of the year for them. Later, I joined their team and training program as a participant and an honored hero, and ran. I mean, from at the time I was in Tampa, but I ran the San Francisco Nike Women's Half Marathon for them, and then I also taught in their school and youth programs. When I lived out in Maui, they it's the San Diego Maui chapter, so they don't have an office in Maui, but I volunteered and did um, a lot of public speaking in schools for them, and helped get the word out in hospitals. And here in the San Francisco area, I do the same. I work with them through Light the Night, which is the main event, that the one that I just said I was fundraiser of the year for in Tampa. Um, so yeah, and I do public speaking in the schools too.
When you do public speaking, how do you, what kind of impact do you think you have on the kids?
You know, my hope is my hope is that I get to share with them. My hope for the children is that they can see me and see that I'm healthy. I mean, no one would ever know that I've ever had any kind of illness.
No, you
So
look great.
so they see me and they see me share a story, but also probably most importantly for me is to teach the kids about giving back, because that specific when I go into the schools, it's about bringing in your spare change. And so I just talk to them about, what Gandhi says, that small change makes a big difference, and it does. And anytime that we can teach young people about giving and receiving, again, going back to this kind of current state that we're in where everything's immediate, um, it's easy for children and youth to want something right now. And nothing, can tell you from personal experience, nothing can humble you like facing a life threatening illness. And that right there, I mean, you realize, nope, I'm just going to have to wait. I have to take this one day at a time, one step at a time. So I think for any of us to be able to learn about giving and receiving at whatever age that is and in whatever capacity is powerful.
Hmm. Absolutely. So you're in San Francisco now, and it's totally new, and you're putting down roots. I'm really curious. I don't know if my listeners will be curious about this, but I am. I found that as an adult, it is so much harder to make friends because than a kid. It was kind of like you were as a kid, unless you were homeschooled, you were kind of forced to be around a bunch of other kids every day at school, right? And so it was so much easier to make friends for most of us, right? And I was in several schools, and I remember there's some schools where I couldn't really find any kids that I related to, so that was harder. But then there were times in other grades where I really related to a lot of them, and so. But then, and college was the same thing. College, you're forced to be in a class with a bunch of people around your age and who have the same interest level as you because you're in the same classes, and but then we're adults and we're sort of thrown into the world. Now, if we work at a job, we've coworkers we might be able to become friends with. But if we're like a stay-at-home mom, we got to go out there and maybe find other moms. And I just found that it is like it's kind of as an adult, we have to really make an effort if we want to make new friends. How did you put your roots down in a completely new place where you didn't know anyone. Give us some pointers for those of us who want to make more friends or want to put down roots, or maybe for those of us who've moved and haven't found our place yet, haven't found our foothold in our new location.
Okay. So this was I mean, I can't tell you how uncomfortable this made me when I first got here, because I also really value my friendships. And, you know, part of what was hard for me to leave Maui was that because it's so isolated, that I sort of needed to leave for other parts of myself. It wasn't a great balance, but I knew that I was also leaving these people that are like my family, but they're way over in the middle of the ocean. And when am I going to see them again? It felt so disconnected. I mean, like, even thinking about it right now, I can just feel that feeling of I can't breathe. Oh my gosh, and just really, real sincere loneliness. But again, because I'm a coach, and not because I'm a coach, but what sort of any the tools I had in my toolbox and the things that I would tell other people, I thought, well, I have to do it too. Let's just experiment. This is what I would tell anybody else, just one foot in front of the other, one day at a time. Doreen Virtue, she's a psychotherapist, also uh, angel card reader, etc. And I listen to her podcasts here and there, and she's very big on talking about, the place that you find. Just do the things that you love, and that's where you'll find people that are like you. Well, and again, I don't have children myself, so it's not like I was going to go meet people, my friends, I mean, my children's friends, or, going to soccer practices and things like that. So I like to exercise. I started going to yoga classes. I started doing a lot of meetups. I would just look, and, if I could go to them, I would. And let me tell you, I had some real moments where I'd go, oh my gosh, these are not my people. These are not my people. Am I ever going to find my people? But I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, just kept saying yes. I had this one morning, it was a Saturday, and I had signed up to do a meetup hike. And I woke up in the morning and I just felt like I did not want to go. I felt tired, like I just wanted to go have coffee with a good girlfriend and sit there and talk, not, have to put myself out there again. But I got my shoes on and I went to this hike, and we were meeting at a Starbucks. So I walk up to the Starbucks and I see all those people, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, that's who I'm going hiking. I can't do it. Those aren't my people." That's one side of my brain is telling me that. The other side of my brain is like, "Kim, who do you think you are? What is wrong with you? What do you haven't even said hi to anybody. I mean, you're being so judgmental. No, stop." So uh, somehow the leader for the hike was late. So I get a cup of coffee and I'm sitting there and I'm really having to have a conversation with myself back and forth. Like, you're here, you're going, Kim, stop. I mean, this is ridiculous. So I go on this hike. It was a beautiful day. I had great conversations with people. We ended up going all day long and then having dinner together. Well, through that one hike, I mean, I met people that would say, "Oh, I've got to introduce you to this friend, this one." I mean, I probably met 10 people, not that weren't even on that specific hike, but that would introduce me to other people, like, "Oh, I have a great friend I need to tell you about that has this great masseuse that you're going to really love." And I mean, I go to all those people. Like, the person that I go to for massage is from like 3 people removed from that hike that one day. And this weekend I had to go down to LA to actually pick up some stuff that from Maui. And a friend of mine watched I mean, long story short, I needed help to go down there. So a friend of mine that went with me had a puppy, and from that hike, um, I met a puppy sitter. You know, I mean, that was a long time ago, and I mean, it's almost like that hike is, in quotes, is like a little bit infamous amongst some of my friends here, because they're like, "Did you meet that person from that hike again? Are you serious from that hike?" And I really had to, like, so And then again on the friendship thing, like I because I'm empathic, I have to I meet someone and it's like I know them. I sense their needs and wants, and I mean I almost have to like turn it down for my own personal self. People are very drawn to me. I, on the other hand, have trouble. I can connect with them. I mean, excuse me, they will connect with me and share with me all kinds of things. I mean, it's why I'm in a good profession. But sometimes for me, it's harder for me because I need a friend that is giving and receiving, not that will just
Mhm.
download all their problems to me all the time. And that's my own personal balance, and something that I work on personally is making sure that the people that are close to me, I'm always happy to listen. That's who I am, but I have to remind myself, Kim, you need someone that will also listen to you and um, be able to be there and show up for you. So that kind of is my challenge.
It's so true. My husband and I, when we were dating, we both realized that I think it was the first time in our lives that we were both in a relationship with another giver. Because I'm always like the giver, and in the
Mhm.
past, in other past relationships, I was sort of like the martyr, which is so toxic. But I thought, if only if I'll sacrifice what I want for my partner, then he will, see that that's my love. Like, this is my declaration of love, and so I would just sacrifice, and it would be stupid. Like, we'll watch what he wants to watch instead of what I want to watch, or we're gonna eat what he wants to eat, or go to the restaurant he wants to go to. And it would start like those little things, but then it would get bigger and bigger until I like lost myself in that relationship. And so with now being with my husband, when we were dating, it was like, wow, I'm with another giver. And then we started having these whole conversations about, the best thing you can do is find a friend who is a giver and you're a giver, and then figure out how to receive. And because it really sucks when you're a giver and you really want to contribute to someone that you love, but they don't know how to receive gracefully, and so it ends up feeling kind of weird. um and so it's if you can find that balance. And I know so many friends in toxic relationships with other friends, and I'm not to say that you can't be friends with someone who's a taker, but you need to find balance, and you need to know when to set your boundaries up, so that, because it's ultimately our decision to set boundaries up that are going to help us be healthy. We can't wait for someone else to treat us the way we want to be treated. We need to set our life up and set the parameters for how we want to be treated. I think it's really funny. I learned this years ago from Landmark Education. Unfulfilled expectations lead to upset. And at first it didn't hit me, but as I kept thinking about it, it really it was such a deep and profound saying, because every argument, if you think of every upset you've had with friendship and with family, if you had upset, ultimately you can find the unfulfilled expectation that you created in your mind. So
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
if someone didn't do something and then you got upset, you're like, well, why are you getting, and so I'd have to analyze this. Why am I getting upset at this person? They're just being themselves. Like, maybe they're just not a giver. Maybe they're just, gonna take, or always talk about their problems, not ask me about mine. And it's not that they're being malicious. That's just who they are. The reason why I'm getting upset is that I had set an expectation and I didn't let them know about that expectation. So if I don't let them know, then I'm not enforcing boundaries. And then it's not fair that I'm setting an expectation, not sharing it with them, and then getting upset at them. It's like I'm the actually being the crazy one in this friendship. They're just being them. It's like they're just being themselves, and I'm getting upset at them because, just, if I'm expecting them to be a giver, for example, and they're not, and then I get upset. it's actually I'm the one that's causing my own upsetness. And so once I realized that and took responsibility for it, then I'm like, wow, what I have to do is I have to enforce boundaries and let people know how I want to be treated. And if they can't do that, then I have to be like, okay, well, just I have to understand that this person, this friend is just the way they are. And if I have a need for example, like you said, sitting with a girlfriend and talking about, going back and forth with her, then I need to find that in someone else, because it's not fair for me to put something on someone who it's just that's not what they want to do. So it's an interesting dynamic that we don't have to often take responsibility for our own upsetness, right? We're so used to just
We
going, well,
have to,
that
though. I
person.
mean, there's so much empowerment in taking responsibility for ourselves. If everyone would just take responsibility for themselves, setting boundaries, finding balance. And I'm a big proponent of when you mention these expectations, I mean, you're exactly right, but I'm a big proponent of making agreements with people.
Mm,
And then you don't have expectations because expectations are the big upset. I mean, if we're not communicating our needs and our wants, and I too am very much a giver, and I've come to accept that I'm a giver. I'm always going to lean towards that, but I have to strive to balance out the receiving. I mean, we all need to have that balance. Some people are just, it comes more naturally for them to be a receiver. So, because I'm so strong on the giving, I think, my sort of my personal belief is that, you know, our lives are always striving to help us find balance. So naturally I'm probably going to be attracted to people that are more on the receiving end. And my job is to come to the middle and explain to them what it is I need and want. And if they can't do that, just like you said, I mean, you either accept them for who they are, but also a big one is to be okay with walking away. There's nothing bad about it. We don't have to get mad or upset. It's okay. Thank you for showing me who you are. And this is who I am. And these are my needs. And if we can't come to the middle, then that's okay. We'll move on, because the faster that we can move on, the closer we are to finding what it is that we do want. And Steve Jobs says fail early and often, and I think that applies. He's talking about business, but I think it applies to relationships of all types. Friends, if a friend shows you or who they are and that's not in agreement with you, then it's okay to walk away. Definitely with romantic partners. I just started, not just, but I mean, I maybe like 2 months have kind of started dating somebody here out here, and he's told me a couple times, "You're tough. You're tough. No one's ever talked to me like that." Well, there's a part of me that I think like, "Oh, good. I'm glad I'm being tough," because typically I have like that means I'm establishing boundaries, but I also feel like, cuz I'm super clear, like I'm happy to be super clear with what it is I want. Like, I've been through a divorce. I've in terms of after being through going through divorce, I'm strive to be 100% whole and happy and good with who I am on my own, and then find someone that can come into my life that I want to be there, not that I need to be there. And so I might as well just come out of the gate and kind of say what it is I need and want.
right.
And
Right.
if
Don't
it's
don't
not
sugarcoat.
much,
Yeah,
yeah,
don't sugarcoat the relationship in the beginning. You're only setting yourself up for failure. We
yes,
think like, oh, we have to be on our best behavior. It's like, no, be yourself, because
not getting
it's
any
like
better. Yeah, not going to get, we might as well, let's just establish these things first. And I actually, one thing I told him, we hadn't been together that long, and I said, I think he had mentioned, gosh, you're tough. And I told him, I said, I think people, I'm piggybacking on what you mentioned. I said, I think people think that, when they first start dating, that should just be all like roses and chocolate. But, when you're really getting to know somebody, and when something comes up that may be quote unquote a red flag, I might as well address it right now,
Mm.
and see, should we move on from that, or let me make sure that you understand my language, etc., because I don't want to waste someone else's time either.
Mhm. Absolutely. And
I feel safe in being able to try. Once I kind of get that stuff out of the way, then I can go, okay, now it's safe for me to feel vulnerable and do kind of become more intimate. But at first, if it's I need you to pick me up at 7 and they show up at 7:45, this did not happen. But I mean, some of those things are, oh, I need to know that I can count on you, especially for these little things. you know how do you communicate? What happened? Why didn't you text me and tell me you were late? On and on. That is a made up story. That did not happen to me, but I'm just saying. Sometimes it's a little one.
right, because if you, oh, I'll just let it slide this time, and not to like be angry at the person, but it's don't just let it slide. Like take the time to address it, and that because or building a friendship or building a relationship, you want conflict in the beginning, not conflict like yelling at each other, but you want almost a little bit of diversity of experiences so that you can then hash out their thought process. You can talk it over with them, because if they're just completely going to shut down and not want to talk about it, not want to solve problems with you, they're probably not going to be a great partner, you
Right.
know.
And I think we have this fallacy again, and this everything should be like roses and chocolate and rainbows. Well, as we know, that's in the movies and that's not always real life. And the easy thing is how we have fun and how we play together. I mean, that's kind of fun and easy. The true test is, how do you're gonna someone in your life, you're gonna have disagreements. How do you disagree? That to me is a much better indicator of longevity. How do you fight fair? um you know
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so funny. My husband and I, early on, we would bicker, not like with anger or anything, but we would have a conflict and we'd have to solve it together, and we wouldn't necessarily always see eye to eye, but we'd want to find a resolution. And it drove my friend nuts when she was with us, because she thought we were really fighting, and no raised voices, no like anger, but we would be hashing something out. And she would it would trigger her, because she would think that we're upset, and we both look at her, we're like, no, we're not upset, we're just trying to solve this issue. And then she'd realize, like, once we've come to a conclusion, like, we didn't yell, we didn't fight, we didn't go name calling, we didn't throw anything at each other, but we both had our opinions and our viewpoints, and we shared it with each other until we found a common ground. And those building blocks early on in our marriage have made it so that we have a phenomenal amount of communication. And when really hard stuff comes up, we built those tools, we built those, strategies together. Early on, we were dating, and we still do that together today. And I see that missing in a lot of relationships, that they were trying to, make it be like chocolate and roses, like you said, and not get real with their friend or with their partner. It's really interesting. So you say that you, with friends, you take it one step further and you set up agreements with them. How can we, and of course this would spill over into relationships as well, friendships and romantic relationships, but how do we set agreements? So pretend that we are one of your clients and you're coaching us through how to do this.
okay, so I'm going to take it from a relationship standpoint because that's what I kind of deal with a lot. Those are our primary foods, right? As we mentioned before, career, relationships. So say someone is constantly take dinner, for instance. Maybe a husband feels like he is going to come home and dinner his expectation is dinner is going to be made when he comes home. He's worked all day. mom's a stay-at-home mom, and that's his expectation. He's never really totally discussed that with his spouse. It's just sort of what he expected. He doesn't understand why can't she cook dinner and be ready with meal ready when I come home. She's been at home all day, etc. So he's having this expectation. She's sort of resentful that he has this expectation because he's never asked anything. She feels busy, like her time is disrespected, etc. So they're not speaking the same language at all. They're on different paths, and it's really having that expectation is really building resentment. So if you come to an agreement, the agreement would look like the husband would say to the wife, do you agree? Can you agree to have dinner made at 6 o'clock when I come home every day? And she might say, I can agree to have dinner made 2 nights a week on Tuesday and Thursday, but on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I have to get Susie, our daughter, from her tap class, and it's virtually impossible. So 2 days a week, maybe you're going to have to pick up dinner, or I might have to pick up dinner, or dinner might need to be ready at 7:45 instead. Would that be okay? Can we agree to that? Yes, now we're agreeing. There's no expectation. Now it's clear. But if you're both having these two expectations in your head and never discussing it, then I've listened to a great podcast. I can't think of his name, but he basically says that if all you ever do is have expectations, then your life is full of either, okay, yeah, that happened. I expected it to. So you're just sort of blah, it's nothing exciting. I expected that to happen. Or you're full of disappointment because your expectation wasn't met. So if all we do is walk around with these expectations all the time, we come home, dinner's made. Okay, great. Yeah, that's what I expected. You're not excited, you know you're not nothing it's nothing like you're never having these moments of jubilation in life. You're just full of expectation or disappointment. Whereas if you have an agreement, I even when I just think of the word agreement, I think it's so much more relaxing. Okay, we agreed to that. I don't have to walk around like, oh, is this going to happen, is that going to happen? I've come out and I've discussed with you, you know and had a discussion, and we have both agreed. And then when you discuss an agreement too, you hear the other person's point of view that, you know, I only see this world through my own eyes, my own perspective. There are billions of other perspectives out there that I have never considered. And I don't know that until I discuss and make an agreement with somebody. And I hear, oh, right. Oh, you can't have that dinner ready for me at 6 o'clock because I didn't think about that you have to go you have got to go run this errand or pick somebody up from this appointment. Right. That would be impossible. Didn't occur to me.
And what I like is that you explained that is not just as simple as, do you agree to this? Yes, I agree to this. Probably most of the time it isn't going to be that simple when you ask for your partner to agree to something. It sounds like most of the time there would be a counter. So to let your partner know, like, here's this, I'd like you to agree to this or to counter it. Can you, if you can't agree to this, can you counter with what you would agree to? And so that I think also would help to rebuild trust, because, if you're in a relationship for any amount of time, we've let each other down, right? Especially when we had unfulfilled expectations. And so we perceive this broken trust. A lot of times we spend our life, looking through the rearview mirror and holding people's past against them. So if you've been like in a 20-year relationship, for example, every time your husband's been late, you now expect him to be late and kind of like really put him down. He's 5 minutes, late, and you really, it's not just that he's 5 minutes late. He's been late, 100 times in the past 20 years. And so you're going to really let him have it because it's an accumulation of that. And then we oftentimes are these meaning making machines. So we'll go on an unconscious level, we'll make it mean he disrespects my time, or he doesn't love me, or, he was with another woman or whatever. we'll make it mean a bunch of stuff, and and really build that resentment up, and lose trust, and it's all in our own head, right? He's just maybe he gets stuck in traffic, maybe he stops for a latte, maybe he just leaves work late and just loses track of time, who knows. But a lot of times we will hold people's past against them, and so if they've done something several times, we often don't realize that we haven't forgiven them for it, and we'll hold it against them. So when it comes to putting a new structure in place, like putting an agreement in place, we have to realize that we need to wipe the board clean a bit, and give them a chance to rebuild that trust, right? Because if we're like, do you agree to be on time, and don't be like those 5 other times you were late, it's like, well, that doesn't build them up, that just tears them down. So we need to realize that when we're making an agreement with someone, that we need to make that agreement from the place of possibility, the future that we want to build with them, rather than the past of all the times that they've disappointed us, or that we've chosen to be disappointed by their actions. So because that takes that level of self-reflection. I think it would also help, with being a client of yours, right, with health coaching. A lot of people don't realize that health coaching is far more than, like I said, just kale. It's a lot of like hashing this stuff out and realizing, oh wow, maybe I've been holding my past, or the past, against my husband, and instead of helping to create a new strategy to build a healthier future. So I love that you teach that, but and also I love that you teach the how to counter, because then if the other person knows that they can counter, then both people are empowered, and it's also this tool that if you do it enough times, you've really now built new trust with each other. Now, what happens if they've agreed to this, maybe they've made a counter, and both parties have agreed, and they've moved forward and it's working, and then something happens, and because this is a new strategy, this is a new routine, right? And of course, everything's shiny and new in the beginning, but how do we keep it long term? So something happens and she doesn't cook dinner that day she promised to, or he doesn't, come home, when he said he'd come home, and now we've got this sort of broken agreement. How do we rebuild, and get back on track without letting the past come back to haunt us?
Well, a broken agreement is an excellent time to reopen up the dialogue and discussion. Okay, what can I do? How can I be better in terms of us forming these agreements? With this agreement, you know, that we formed, somewhere we must have miscommunicated. So how can we readdress this? My personal opinion is, when we go back, and if we're only taking responsibility for ourselves, if I go into an agreement with somebody and the agreement is broken, I'm going to look at myself first. What did I do wrong? How did this agreement? Now, think about, if you go to somebody, I mean, and it has to be authentic, but if you can go to somebody and you can say, what did I do wrong? How can I be better? How can I be a better partner to you, that we can come to an agreement that we both stick to? That has a lot. That's, I'm not accusing them of anything. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
blaming them. I am taking full responsibility for myself. That has a lot of leadership in it, 100% respect. And typically, when we come to an agreement, and if it is formed in the correct way, as a human being, you want to keep your word. If the agreement was formed properly, meaning, like we were talking about, having an open dialogue, discussion, and truly coming to an agreement. I mean, even if you think of like a written agreement, some sort of documentation, even like, what comes to my mind is like divorce papers. When you come to that agreement, I mean, no, you got to hash it out. But by the time you sign on the dotted line, I mean, that's what I agreed to. I agreed to that. That's what I'm going to stick to. I wasn't forced into making any decision, but you know, here it is, and now I'm going to stick to that. I mean, if I have someone working for me and they're constantly 10 minutes late to work, To me, that's on me to sit down and say, what can I do better so that you can show, it's important to me that you're here. You are a valuable member of our team. I need you to be here. Put in a full day's work because without that, you know, our company is suffering. When you speak to somebody like that and build them up instead of breaking them down, I mean, that is they want to show up for you. And that does take a lot of humbling and vulnerability in a relationship. I mean, it does. But if you come to an agreement about dinner and the person doesn't show up, to me, it is the first thing that I would say, and I would encourage someone else to say is, what happened? I was really enjoying the agreement that we had, and I see that something fell through the cracks. What can I do better? Because someone, if some, and they want people that care about you or in your circle. If you can speak to them like that, that's showing a lot of respect to them, and we all want to be respected and loved.
I love it. I love that because our initial instinct, I think most people, is to let him have it. This is where you went wrong, and this is, you did this to me, and this is how I felt, and to really kind of like tear them down, right? And that's
Now,
our,
I think in all of what you just said, I am a big proponent of explaining it to somebody how you feel, using it in those words, because that again is not accusing. So nobody can argue with you about the way that you feel. As long as you can say how something made you feel, that's okay. So in that is a good communication method. When this happened, when this occurred, I felt this way.
but not by saying you made me feel this way, because
No,
then that is the
nope.
languaging is automatically we're no longer taking responsibility for our life. But if we can say, when this happened, I felt sad that our agreement um had not been fulfilled, and then but then turning it around and going, what can I do,
Better.
what can I do better to get back on track with this agreement. What I love about that is that, well, it takes us out of the monkey brain, because now
Take
we're not coming
brain,
from that.
not defensive.
Yeah.
We're not in a defensive conversation now. We're in a problem solving space. We're in it together. We're partners and we're problem solving. Because if you start accusing someone immediately, they're going to be defensive. And what gets solved in that space? Now we're just arguing, right? Monkey brain. Now we have just triggered both people's inner child, and now we're having an immature conversation that, you know 2 5 year, I mean, unless I want to go tumble in the sand and like, and scrap it out, which I really am not a fan of, then I don't want to trigger the monkey brain or anybody's inner child. I want to have a discussion with a mature adult.
I can also see this really working with parents and kids that are, old enough to have these kind of discussions, like teenagers or preteens, but um
I
instead of
think even younger, honestly, because I mean, if we're talking about is a child, picking up some toys, can you agree to pick up these toys and to keep you, it might take a little bit more training, but to begin that, I don't think it's ever too young to begin that conversation and to get them trained into that way of thinking, because it is then it's empowering, a 4-year old, and or he feels empowered that, look what it feels accomplished at a very young age, that they made an agreement with a parent, and it's not always this power struggle. Some things a parent is just going to, and not always can we enter into agreements with a 3 or 4 or 5-year old, but there in certain chores, instead of just telling them what to do, having them come to an agreement, I do think is a great tool, because again, the younger that we can start having those types of discussions with children, think of what that looks like when all of those kids grow up to be adults. and they've already
Hmm.
been thinking that way.
And the child, you can also teach the child how to, instead of having expectations that are unfulfilled, and the
Hmm.
child can figure out what their um, what they would like their parents to agree to. So if it's like, going for a walk, or playing in the yard, or story time, or if they have something they'd like the parent to agree to, then we can teach the child. Mom, I would you agree to read me this a chapter from this book every night before bed, right?
Right. I think that we could all adults could be very well served to not think that children are ever too young to get a concept like this, because they're little sponges, and you know it is just a number, and at that age they are just absorbing everything. All their only job in life really is to just take in their surroundings. So if they're surrounded by adults that they're even observing that are having this type of conversation in their adult relationships, if that's how their mom and dad are speaking, and then they are spoken to that way as well, and if we can tell them, well, you see, I understand that you're upset today, but you expected something, and that's not what we agreed to. I mean, children, I think that they are amazingly receptive to so much that we don't give them credit for.
Hmm. This is such a great tool. Now, you say you're an empath, and that's what helps you be a great coach. Do you think that people can learn to be more empathetic, or do you think it's something that we're just born with? And if it's something you think we could learn to do, how do you teach people to be more empathetic?
Well, I think that kind of like anything, we have different levels of empathy and sympathy, and some people are more prone to kind of be passionate and angry. And I think that we're born with these sort of sets of skills. Some of them are learned and observed, some of them are innate. Um, and then it's kind of like the born athlete, the natural athlete is just always going to be, it's going to be easier for them. It's going to come more natural. But then you can train someone to be an athlete as well. You know, if they have the desire and the time they put into it and all of that. So I think, like a lot of things, there's a spectrum. But I it is sort of a gift, I believe, that I was born with, is being extremely empathetic. And with a lot of gifts, there, the flip side of that is I really take in. I'm very, very sensitive. I take it. If I don't properly protect my own self, it can make me sick, make me very tired, very exhausted, because I'm taking in a lot of people's emotions. Um, but absolutely, I do think, especially if somebody wants to learn to be more empathetic, having the desire is, you know, the first step. You can't teach anybody to do anything that doesn't want to and isn't open and receptive to it. Um, and probably the easiest way, in the analogies I use with people all the time, are pretend you are in the other person's shoes. What would that be like for you? And it's really amazing because some people, you can tell them and I can see them nodding their head and they get it and they're like, oh, yeah, I never thought about that. Some people, you almost have to really get them in a meditative state. Close your eyes, feel this, see this setting, because it's harder for them, for some people, to be empathetic. So you have to really get them in the space where their mind is open and willing to receive what it would be like. And for me, that's personally just fascinating. To your question of, can you teach people, or can anybody be empathetic? Well, in working with a variety of people, you can see how it does come more naturally and easily to some, and how others it is much more challenging.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that.
Mhm.
But it's good that in some circumstances you help people to get into someone else's shoes, and I think that's really important. So your life has really evolved in the last 6 months, and that's really exciting. You've been putting yourself out there, making friends, and learning, and your coaching business is evolving. What do you see as down the road for you? What do you have plans for in the future?
I think hopefully next time you and I talk, I my goal is to tell you that I have published some children's books. That's really what, aside from keeping up the path of what I am doing. And I'm also going to go ahead and say this out loud and put it out there to the universe that I'd really love to join a team of health coaches, or you know like a practice, and be
Mm.
with more like-minded, instead of more the entrepreneurial kind of path that I've been taking. More, the reason that I feel that way is because just the collaboration piece, more is better, and being with that kind of tribe and community, and things that I excel at, others won't, and absolutely vice versa. I think one of the first things we said on this call was, um, that we're learners, and teachers, and so joining some kind of practice or wellness institute or something like that, um, that feels like a good fit. I feel like I'm ready for that next
You
step.
should start a meetup
Yeah.
group.
Hmm?
You should start a meetup group for
Oh,
health
maybe that's
coaches.
me. You know what? It's so funny that you said that, because I have recently, I'm big into, when you have the message come to you, putting it out there. I've had two people recently ask me to do that. One person asked me to host um like a psychotherapy meetup, and I said I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychotherapist. And they said, "Oh, you're not?" I was like, "No, that's not I'm not trained in that. I certainly don't want to. I mean, if we can call it something else, but I'm not gonna, can't put myself out there with that talent. Although I think, in terms of lifelong learning, I would love to do that one day, but not today. Can't host that meetup. But anyway, that's a great. Okay, I'm gonna put that in the put that in the brain, not the monkey brain.
Wonderful. Well, Kimberly, it's such a pleasure to catch up and to hear what you're doing, and also thank you so much for sharing these insights. I think they're really powerful. Listeners can go to empathcoaching.com or visit the show notes of today's podcast for the links to everything that Kimberly does. Kimberly, I'd love for you to close out today's interview by sharing something that we can do now and for the next 7 days, and then maybe beyond 7 days, to improve an area of our life or improve our health in some way. What change, what challenge can we take on?
Okay, well, if there's anybody that's listening to this that knows me, I feel like they are going to know exactly what I'm going to answer here. And it's gratitude. I think that if we can, any spot that we are in, any challenge that we're facing, if we can remind ourselves to be grateful, we are shifting our thinking. Because no matter what, if we have our health, we have friends, family, a roof over our head, food on the table, there's always so much to be grateful for. There's always someone that's so much worse off than we are. Yes, we can get stuck in a negative thought process of wanting something different, especially when we get in a spot of transition. We're focused on what we don't have. If you can change that and shift your thinking to being grateful, it's amazing the space and the clarity that opens up for you. So, what I would say to do in terms of like a homework assignment is get something. It could be your iPhone or your phone or an actual physical journal that you put next to your bed. But if you can wake up every morning and the simplest thing to do would be to write down 3 things you're grateful for. And actually, there's a Harvard study done on this that actually said if you do this for 28 days, you are training yourself to be happy.
Hmm.
But
I totally agree. Totally agree and love that.
so wait, but like, okay, the homework assignment though is write down 3 things you're grateful for. And then you have to reach out to somebody else and tell them you're grateful. It could be a phone call to them. It could be, so you're doing something internal, but then you're reaching out beyond yourself. So it could be that you say, you know, to your neighbor, thank you so much. I appreciate that you let me borrow that egg last night. But every day it has to be somebody different. It could be a text, it could be a phone call, it could be an email. So in some way you're reaching out to them. So 3 things you're personally grateful for, and then you reach out outside of yourself.
I did you know that what you just shared is so similar to, it's because it works. It's so similar
Mhm.
to, I had a guest on the show a long time ago. Can't even remember the name, the um it's like way back in like episode, 40 or something like that, but it's way back there. Michael Weinberger is one of my guests who, amazing interview. He created an app called A Plan for Living. That's what I had to think about it for a sec. His app is called A Plan for Living, and he created it because he's been extremely bipolar his whole life, and he's on many medications. And if he's not on these medications, he'll attempt suicide. And
Wow.
so he's, yeah, it's very severe. His case of bipolar is very severe, and he's a wonderful it's a really great interview. He's a wonderful person, and he figured out after an entire lifetime of psychotherapy that that there is a formula for him to keep himself as even keel as he possibly can in the face of his condition. And part of it is exactly what you shared. So his app, A Plan for Living, which is, I believe it's a free app to download, but you every morning before you get out of bed, before your feet hit the ground, you grab your phone, or maybe you grab your phone, within a few minutes of being awake, if it's not by your bedside, and the first thing it asks you is on a scale of 1 to 10 how happy you are, and you just, whatever you're feeling at the time. So let's say it's a 3, and then he has you list 3 things you're grateful for, and then asks you again how happy you are on a scale of 1 to 10. And he says that he had over, in the beta test, had like over 500 people do this, and he saw that the majority of them, just by listing 3 things they're grateful for and then being asked again on the scale of 1 to 10 how they felt, they always had an improvement. And so he says, like a 2 out of 10 could be like, I'm not going to get out of bed today. Like, that's how depressed they are. And then they list the 3 things they're grateful for. And now they're a 4 out of 10, and now they can get out of bed. And so it's an app that's helping a lot of people. And then another piece of the puzzle, he says, is reach out to someone and tell them what you're grateful for. And I've actually got a few emails from him.
Yeah.
Just random ones like, hey, I just want you to know I was thinking about you and I'm really grateful for the time I spent on your podcast. And he says he does it to his wife. So if you think of someone, if someone comes up in your mind, text them or email them or call them, and just let them know that you're grateful for them. And
It's
if that,
amazing what you receive when you do that. When someone pops into your head and you're just driving around and you think, "Oh, I'm so grateful for them." When you reach out to them, I mean, I've received so many, someone going, "Oh my gosh, Kim, I was just thinking about you too." And then comes the whole discussion of how we're just all so connected. But I mean, if we can remember that to put it out, you got to put it out to receive goodness, you've got to put it out there too. So I am a big, huge proponent. You've given me some homework, by the way. I'm gonna download that app, and I'm gonna keep processing this meetup idea. And now that I've promised I'm gonna have a children's book, I mean, I've got it pretty close to finished. But you know, I've now that I've put it out there, I know I have to deliver.
well, when your children's book is ready to be published, we should have you back on the show so we can talk about it. And Now, is this a children's book that like helps children with understanding or processing emotions, or is this a bedtime story? Like, what kind of children's book is this?
It's actually about nutrition, and I break it down into primary and secondary nutrition.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Well, then you should definitely come back on the show so when you launch the book, we can have another interview about it, and then the listeners can go and check out your book. And with Amazon, if you want to be a bestseller, you want to send as much traffic as you can to the book when you first launch it. So we'll help you do that, especially because I know my listeners would love to help promote a book that has to do with teaching kids more about nutrition and a healthy life, right? That's what we're all about. That definitely inspires me, is to help,
Awesome.
yeah, help as many
Excited.
children as we can.
Thank you. Thank you. It's
Yeah,
always such a pleasure to talk to you.
and the pleasure's all mine. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly, and I look forward to having you back on the show again. And this hour just flew by. I can't believe it. But
Sure did.
thank you for sharing, and I look forward to hearing how your journey just continues to take off. It's such a pleasure thank you for being so vulnerable and letting us learn from your life as well. I think that's really beautiful.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful to you and to all your listeners, and I look forward to coming back.
Enjoy what you heard today on your episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Did something move you, inspire you? Did you get great information that's going to change your life? Awesome. That's exactly what I'm here to do, is to help you gain your health back. Please turn around and share this. If this is something that's helped you in any way, share this with those you love. Love the Learn True Health podcast and want to support us? Awesome. You can go to takeyoursupplements.com and you can support us that way. You'll get access to amazing supplements that are just really great quality for a great price. And there'll be someone on the other end of the line to help you pick out your supplements that are right for you. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Or join our membership, learntruehealth.com/join. That's another great way to support our podcast, support our movement, and you'll be supporting yourself. Gain more information, wonderful videos, wonderful trainings, and you'll also be able to share those with those you love as well. So go to learntruehealth.com/join. Want something fun for free? Go to learntruehealth.com, and right there on the front page, you'll see where you can get our free cookbook. I spent a lot of time making it, and it was so much fun. It's really delicious, healthy recipes. And you can also get our 7-day doctor course. Right there, it's 7 days of naturopathic videos sent right to your inbox, and you can learn from top naturopaths on how to gain health naturally. So that's takeyoursupplements.com for wonderful supplements. learntruehealth.com/join to join our awesome membership, which is only open for a limited time. You can get our free healthy cookbook, and you can also get for free 7 days of wonderful naturopathic videos sent to you. Just go to learntruehealth.com and you'll see it right there on the front page. Thank you so much for being a listener, and thank you for sharing and helping others. Let's spread this information and turn this ripple into a tidal wave.